Now I want to move to the reader participation segment of this roundtable discussion, and I'll ask Zhu Yong.
Okay, hi, good afternoon. My name is Zhu Yong. I'm the social media editor at the Straits Times. So last Thursday, after the certificates of eligibility were issued, we announced to our readers that we will be holding this roundtable, and we also invited the Singaporean public to submit questions to tell us what are the questions they would like us to ask you. So over the next 3 days, we received about 500 questions, and we took a look at all these 500 questions, and we came up with a short list of the best 15. Then we took this short list, put it back out to the public, and say, vote for your favorite. So yesterday, about 2,500 people voted and ranked the questions from first to last. So my job today is, on behalf of them, to ask you the top 5 questions. So how it's going to work is that you're going to have 1 minute strictly to answer each question.
Is somebody picking time?
Yeah, me.
You? Okay,
yeah.
Good.
So when you have 10 seconds on the clock, maybe I'll just put out my pen like this, just to give you an indication that it's time to wrap up your argument. So,
Starting with you?
No, we'll rotate. And for the 5th question, anybody who wants to go first can do so. So if there are no questions, I'll start.
It's the same 5 questions for all of us, or?
Yes, it is. So the first question coming from this guy who calls... Yes, Mr. Tan, you will start first. First question comes from this guy who calls himself Real Singaporean on Twitter. His question is, what do you think would be a fair salary for the president?
My position is very clear. If it is $4 million, the fair salary is less than half. And if it is reduced by the salary review, probably about half. Now, I've read the views of many people, and they say, why are you paying such a big salary when you don't have much to do? I want to assure the people of Singapore, if I'm the president, there's a lot of things to do, and even so, I want to donate at least half.
Okay. Dr. Tan?
I think it's a question that is quite difficult to answer. And you cannot just plug a figure from the air and say, okay, this is the amount. There must be some basis when they start decisions. And I would say we have to really study the roles and responsibilities of the president. Many people think that the president is just going around waving hands and so on. But I read the report from Nathan's report. I think he's done a lot of things. Apart from the ceremonial role, the custodial role, and so on, I think it's a lot of work that is being done. Therefore, I think before we just say that, okay, we do this cut here, cut there, let's study the subject properly. There's a committee reviewing it. I will go by what the committee has decided. Oh, that's all. Okay.
Dr. Yes.
The government has set up a salaries commission or committee under the chairmanship of Mr. Gerard Ee, comprising of people from a wide sector of society in Singapore. I'm sure they are studying this issue very seriously. What the compensation the president should get, the ministers should get, other public service holders. We should wait until we get the decision, and whoever is president will, I'm sure, abide by the recommendation and decision of the committee as determined by the government.
Well, we can't really, I agree with Dr. Tan Cheng, we can't really pluck the figure from the air, but there are certain benchmarks, and I would disagree with the approach taken by the government, at least the Prime Minister in his terms of reference for a Gerard Ee committee, that you take the discount, benchmark the salaries against the salaries of CEOs, and then you take a discount. I think that is the wrong approach. The minister is not a CEO. He is a public officer looking after the public interest, and his salary should be benchmarked to somebody in public sector. Well, you have various Japan, UK, they benchmark the salary to the lowest paid civil servant. And I think we should, as public figures, we should not take the CEO salary as a starting point. I would prefer a certain multiple of minimum salary. Maybe we don't have a minimum salary in Singapore, but obviously I would advocate a minimum salary. But let's take the lowest salary of the civil servant, the lowest grade. If it is $1,000, then take a multiple of it, whether it's 20, 30, or 40. In Japan, it's 40 times because, I read a report somewhere, it's 40 times. Because salaries are low. In UK, it's lower than that, because the UK salaries are higher. So I would benchmark against public officer, if not a minimum salary.
Okay. The second question, Dr. Tan would like to invite you to go first, is from Kevin Yong. Dr. Tan. From Kevin Yong on the straitstimes.com. He wants to know, what is the most significant thing you have personally done for the middle income and low income Singaporeans that was not done in any sort of official capacity?
Not within my term as office as an MP?
Yes, personally.
I think I would attribute it to my contribution on this credit counseling, because I know there are many people, credit defaulters, they lost a lot of money and through credit card usage. And I remember the sub-courts came to ask me whether I could play a role to help these people who were in trouble. So I managed to organize and plan and got an organization going to help these people, especially in the lower middle income, on how to manage their finances and so on.
Well, personally, what I have championed for many, many years, what I would call charitable causes for people who do not normally come under the spotlight. It may be small. I think one of the best charities I've ever been involved with is a Straits Times Pocket Money Fund to raise money to give children $2-3 a day so that they can buy a meal at recess time. I think this is wonderful because it's not a glamorous charity, but it's extremely useful. I've also been very involved with old folks' home in Sembawang, the Swami Home, the Sri Nara Home for the aged sick. Again, these are not glamorous charities, but they serve personal need. And finally, of course, I've just agreed to be patron of Dover Park Hospice, help people in the terminal stages of life. I think these are very worthwhile causes.
Thanks. Mr. Tan.
Well, I think the most significant thing outside public service is when I started drafting up a paper on economic ideas for economic change in Singapore. And I was perturbed by what I read from the Taman's report, Economic Strategies Committee, because it asked the wrong questions and gave the wrong answers. So that's where, because I find that they have discovered that 4/5 in the last 10 years, 4/5 of economic growth came from just increase in workers. And there was no real answer to that. And even then, they continue to do that. And that has depressed the earnings of our people. So I became more conscious talking about then there's this waitress who came about. You know, Mr. Tan, 5 years ago, as a waitress, I earned $1,500. And now I'm earning only $800. What happened? It's all these young Chinese girls who come here to become that's what I did. Wrote the paper and articulate the views that a new economic direction to benefit the lower middle and the lower paid workers.
Thanks. Mr. Tan?
After leaving income, I spent a lot of time in my blog to educate people about financial planning, insurance and investment. I also set up a consumer association, Financial Services Consumer Association. I interact with many people. And I want to give them tips on how they should manage their money. So this is also part of what I got involved in the Lehman Brothers crisis. It's all part of that. And I think educating people is quite important.
Thank you. The third question, maybe Dr. Tony Tan, you can go first. Desmond Hu on Twitter wants to know, how will you be a unifying figure when Singaporeans are divided over political issues?
As I said at a seminar, I think some time ago, I regard the last election as a win-win-win election outcome. A win for the government because of the mandate, win for the opposition, particularly the Workers' Party. They have a platform in Parliament now. And a win for Singapore because it is a progress in our political maturity. Yes, there are divisions. We have to recognize that. I think here the President, through his influence, can help to bind all of these divisions together, recognize the differences between our various groups in Singapore, and decide how we can resolve these differences in a rational, non-confrontational way. And I think the President can do a great deal in that respect.
Well, the division, social division along political lines comes about because of extreme positions. And as President, obviously, to unify the people, you have to bring both parties together. Both of them have to be less extreme on economic issues like total reliance on foreign workers. We must find a different consensus, and a different consensus that will bring people together. You must not say that you are poor, you can't get a job because you are lazy. That's an extreme position. That's wrong position to take. I know a lot of people without jobs who want to work, and they're not lazy. So the kind of philosophy, we must have a consensus that people want to work. There will be the odd man out who wants to take advantage, to abuse the system. But I think that is a reality.
Mr. Tan?
Now, the most important issue to rally the people is that you address what is most important to them. And they say life is difficult. I can't get married, I can't have children. I want to address this bread and butter issue. I want to work with the government to change some of the policies that can give people a better life and hope, the young people and the older people. I think this will be the best unifying. And then I remember a time when many people were proud to be Singaporeans because they know the country, the leaders look after them. I believe the salary gap between the top and the bottom income should narrow. I want to set an example to bring that about. And then people will say, my leaders are concerned about me.
Thank you. Dr. Tan?
I answered this question earlier on, but let me add a little bit. I think one of the important areas that we should look into actually is multiracialism. We all take it for granted. But I want to make sure that if I become president, I'm going to promote events that will really ensure that we have this multiracialism activity and a very strong spirit. And that would include football. As I said, I love football. I think it's the best game for us all together. Nelson Mandela did it with rugby. Let us do it with football.